Welcome to Tech Talks with Kinsoft. I want you to just imagine a really tense hostage negotiation for a second.
Okay, sounds intense. I'm picturing it.
Right. So the kidnapper is on the phone, and they are demanding this massive ransom. They sound dangerous. They obviously have leverage, and they're threatening to basically dismantle your life if you don't wire the funds right that second.
Yeah, high pressure, total panic.
Exactly. But then you ask for proof of life. Like, you ask to speak to the hostage. Or maybe you ask for a current photograph holding today's newspaper, something like that.
Standard protocol, right? You need to know it's real.
Yeah, but then the kidnapper just goes silent. They hang up. Or, I don't know, maybe they send you a totally blank piece of paper. The entire dynamic of that situation just fractures instantly.
Oh, absolutely. Because the psychological weight just shifts completely.
Right. You have to stop and ask yourself, is this a genuine catastrophe? Or am I just being targeted by some incredibly elaborate, high-stakes bluff?
Yeah, you aren't just calculating the cost of the ransom anymore. You are suddenly forced to calculate the actual probability that the threat actor even holds the cards they claim to be holding.
It's paralyzing.
It really is. It paralyzes decision-making, which, in a crisis scenario, that's highly destructive.
And that exact specific paralysis is actually playing out across the Australian digital landscape right now.
It is. It's wild to watch.
We are looking at this startling cyber extortion spree from early 2026, and it was orchestrated by the Qilin ransomware group.
Yeah, Qilin has been incredibly aggressive lately.
Totally. So over the course of just a single month, Qilin targeted a quartet of Australian businesses. And for our discussion today, we are going to put one of those victims under the microscope, which is the Barker Co-operative in Western Australia.
That's a really good focal point for this.
Yeah, because we really need to examine how modern cyber cartels like Qilin are structuring their operations. Why the data they claim to hold is shrouded in so much mystery, and ultimately what practical steps you and your business need to take to protect yourselves.
And Barker Co-operative serves as a perfect lens for this, honestly. It highlights a massive shift in threat actor targeting toward regional supply chains.
Right, getting away from just the giant city corporations.
Exactly. And more importantly, it really exposes the somewhat chaotic, decentralized reality of modern ransomware. It kind of shatters that myth of the omnipotent, flawless hacker syndicate.
Yeah, they aren't all just typing perfectly in green code in a dark room. Let's actually map out the timeline of this spree because it's interesting.
Let's do it.
So on January 30th, 2026, Qilin goes on this sudden offensive. They hit an electronics retailer, Esperance Communications, out in Western Australia.
Okay, so starting at West.
Right. And then shortly after that, they list another WA business, Esperance Metaland.
Oh.
Now, with Metaland, they claimed a very specific haul. They said they got 14 gigabytes of data, encompassing over 16,000 files.
That is a very specific flex.
It is. And then they break their Western Australian streak just briefly for targeting Queensland. But the real centerpiece of this whole campaign, the one we're focusing on, lands on February 11th.
Right, the Barker listing.
Exactly. That is when Qilin lists the Barker Co-operative on their dark web leak site, and they claim to have exfiltrated 40 gigabytes of internal business data.
40 gigabytes is a substantial volume of text and documents.
It sounds like a lot.
Oh, it is. Depending on the density of the files, that could easily be a decade's worth of financial ledgers, member databases, supply chain logistics, employee records, you name it.
Really sensitive stuff.
Yeah, for a regional food and farm cooperative, that is basically the operational crown jewels.
But here is where it gets really interesting. Here's the twist. You navigate via a Tor browser to Quilin's dark web leak portal to actually verify this claim, right?
Because you want to see the proof of life.
Exactly. And they boast that the 40 gigabytes have been published for the world to see. So you click the directory link to the data, and it just throws a 404 not found error.
This is a dead page.
Complete dead end. And this wasn't just some isolated glitch from Barker either. Across this entire four-target spree, the hackers provided virtually zero hard, verifiable evidence that the exfiltration was actually successful.
Which is fascinating from an operational standpoint.
It's baffling. It's like a bank robber running out of the vault, waving this completely empty sack and screaming to the police that they took $1 million.
That's a great way to put it.
Why would a hacker syndicate publicly announce a hack but fail to provide the proof? I struggle to understand the strategic value there. If your whole business model relies on reputational damage and terror, failing to produce the data just destroys your credibility.
Well, see, that assumes their primary operational goal is maintaining this pristine, reliable reputation rather than simply generating immediate, blinding panic.
Oh, interesting. So the panic is the point.
Often, yes. We have to look at the psychological warfare of that initial leak site post. When Qilin lists Mount Barker, automated scrapers pick that up instantly.
Right, the threat intelligence feeds.
Exactly. Threat intelligence feeds broadcast it. The cybersecurity media starts making calls. The board of directors demands an immediate incident briefing.
Even with the 404 error.
Even with the 404 error staring them right in the face, the victim organization is instantly plunged into chaos. The uncertainty itself becomes a weapon.
Okay, but I'd argue that the uncertainty might actually backfire on the attacker.
How so?
Well, if the IT team investigates and realizes, hey, no massive data transfer actually occurred, the board might just refuse to pay. They'd call the bluff.
That's a fair point. But think about the initial shockwave. The IT team still have to assume a breach until they can definitively prove otherwise.
Ah, I see.
Which means 24/7 forensic analysis, completely isolating their networks, and essentially halting business operations just to prove a negative.
Just to prove the data didn't leave. And proving a negative in IT is brutal.
Precisely. Proving a negative in a complex network environment takes weeks. During that window of extreme exhaustion and operational downtime, executives might feel pressured to negotiate anyway, just to make the public relations nightmare vanish.
Regardless of whether the 404 error is there or not. Wow. Well, let's actually dig into that 404 error technically for a second, because it points to something fundamentally broken in Qilin's execution.
It definitely does.
A 404 on a hidden service means the server itself is reachable, but the specific resource just isn't there. It suggests an automated system probably generated the leak page, but the back-end payload, the actual data, never arrived.
Yeah, that points to the architecture of the group.
Right. Which brings us to how Qilin is actually structured. Because they aren't just this cohesive team sitting in a single room somewhere. They operate what's called a ransomware as a service, or ROS model.
Yeah, RADIS is essentially the industrialization of cybercrime.
Break that down for us.
Sure. So the core Qilin developers, the guys at the top, they build the sophisticated encryption binaries, they maintain the dark web infrastructure, and they manage the extortion negotiation portals.
They build the tool.
Right. But they outsource the actual network intrusion to independent contractors.
The affiliates.
Exactly, known in the ecosystem as affiliates. So the core group takes a percentage of the final ransom, and the affiliate keeps the rest.
It's literally a franchise model. And according to a November 2025 report from ThreatLocker, this franchise model has allowed Qilin to scale at just a terrifying rate.
The numbers are staggering.
They really are. They went from claiming 45 victims in 2022 to boasting more than 800 victims in 2025.
Yeah, and you don't hit 800 victims a year without heavy automation.
Exactly. So my hypothesis is that the Qilin leak site is hooked into an API. When an affiliate successfully detonates the ransomware inside a target network, the Qilin infrastructure automatically generates a leak page to start that extortion clock.
That makes perfect sense.
But the core system doesn't actually verify if the affiliate bothered to successfully exfiltrate the data first.
I think that API disconnect is a highly probable scenario because in a decentralized RAS model, quality control is practically non-existent.
You get what you get with these affiliates.
Yeah, you are mixing highly sophisticated initial access brokers with, frankly, impatient amateurs.
Right, someone who just bought a login and wants a quick payout.
Exactly. An affiliate might breach Mount Barker's perimeter, stumble around a bit, trigger an endpoint detection and response alert, panic, and then immediately execute the encryption binary before they even establish a stable exfiltration channel.
So they lock the doors before stealing the furniture.
Yeah. The ransomware phone's home to Qilin saying, hey, target encrypted. The API auto-publishes the victim's name and an estimated data size based on the network, but the actual data repository on the dark web remains empty. Hence, the 404.
Or, considering we were talking about 40 gigabytes here, they might have tried to push that volume out of the network, hit a bandwidth bottleneck, and the connection just timed out.
Also very possible.
Moving 40 gigs quietly without tripping a network traffic anomaly alert isn't exactly trivial for a sloppy affiliate.
No, it's not. And that variability in affiliate skill is really what makes defending against a RISE threat so unpredictable.
The left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing.
Precisely. The core Qilin operators might be sitting there expecting a clean double extortion play, stealing the data and locking the machines. But the affiliate on the ground just botched the heist and ran out the door empty-handed.
Leaving the core group to just bluff their way through the negotiation with a 404 page.
Exactly.
But, we really shouldn't let the sloppy data exfiltration lull us into a false sense of security here.
Oh, absolutely not.
Because while their back-end data handling might be throwing 404s, the methodology they use to actually penetrate and occupy these networks is incredibly persistent. Let's look at the timeline of an intrusion for a minute.
It's eye-opening.
The Threat Locker report highlighted a statistic that fundamentally changes how we need to view these attacks. They found that Qilin affiliates have an average dwell time of 19 days.
19 days. Let that sink in. They are inside a network for nearly 3 weeks before the encryption payload is ever detonated.
That is wild.
Mm-hmm.
It completely shatters that legacy idea of a cyber attack being this quick smash-and-grab operation.
It really does.
Because if they are maintaining persistence for 19 days, they aren't just blasting a malicious executable and hoping for the best. They are actively evading detection.
Very carefully evading it.
My assumption is they're using what we call living off the land techniques, right?
That's exactly what they do.
So instead of bringing in noisy malware that a standard antivirus would immediately flag, they compromise an administrator's credentials. And then they just use the network's own native legitimate tools like PowerShell or Windows management instrumentation to move laterally.
Yeah, that is exactly how they maintain that stealth profile. They co-opt the very administration tools that your own IT department uses every single day.
Which makes them look like normal employees to the system.
Right. And during those 19 days, the affiliate is conducting rigorous enumeration and discovery.
Poking around, seeing what's what.
Methodically mapping the Active Directory environment. They locate the domain controllers to escalate their privileges to domain admin. They identify exactly where the critical databases for operations and finance are housed.
They are basically reading your playbook while you sleep. But wait, if I'm running a modern security operations center, how does an attacker sit in my environment for 19 days, querying Active Directory and scanning subnets without lighting up my telemetry like a Christmas tree?
Well, often they just disable or blind the telemetry.
Seriously.
Yeah. If they compromise an account with sufficient privileges early on, their first move is usually to tamper with the EDR agents on the endpoints. They are essentially turning off the security cameras before they start moving the heavy equipment.
That is terrifying.
It is. But the most critical phase of that entire 19-day dwell time isn't just finding the data to steal, it's hunting down the backups.
Of course, because backups are the ultimate leverage breaker.
100%.
If an affiliate encrypts the Barker Co-operative servers, but the IT director can just press a button and spin up a clean snapshot from yesterday, the ransom demand is totally toothless.
The affiliate knows this. So they spend those 2 weeks methodically seeking out the backup servers. They delete volume shadow copies, and they attempt to corrupt off-site storage credentials.
They want to make sure you have no safety net.
Exactly. They want to ensure that when they finally execute that Qilin binary on day 19, the victim is totally paralyzed.
Which honestly makes the 404 error we discussed earlier even more complex.
Mm.
An affiliate might successfully spend 19 days crippling your backups and deploying the encryptor perfectly, but then they just fail at the data exfiltration piece.
Right. The company is still paralyzed, even if the data wasn't actually stolen.
Exactly. And this brings us to the targeting strategy, I think. Because if these affiliates are spending 3 weeks methodically dismantling a network, they are putting in significant effort. Why aim that level of effort at a regional food and farm cooperative in Western Australia?
Well, it is a very ruthless calculation of the risk-to-reward ratio.
How so?
Regional cooperatives operate at this critical intersection of physical supply chains and digital logistics. They manage payments for local farmers, they coordinate freight, they handle vast amounts of member data, and they often interface with physical industrial control systems.
So they have incredibly high uptime requirements.
Massive uptime requirements. If Barker Cooperative goes offline, it's not just a digital inconvenience,
Right, it's real-world impact.
Exactly. Local agriculture logistics grind to a halt. Produce physically doesn't move. Payments freeze. The cascading effect on the regional economy is immediate and severe.
And high criticality translates directly to high extortion leverage for the hackers.
Precisely. However, historically, these regional hubs do not possess the massive enterprise-tier cybersecurity budgets of, say, a Tier 1 bank in Sydney.
They might have leaner IT teams, maybe managing sprawling legacy infrastructure.
Yes. So for a Ray affiliate, a regional cooperative represents a target that will experience immense immediate pain from downtime, but they may lack the layered zero-trust architecture needed to stop a determined intruder from escalating privileges.
It's basically the perfect storm of high leverage and potentially softer perimeters.
It unfortunately is.
So let's talk solutions. How do we disrupt this attack chain? Because we know the adversary's playbook now, right? We have opportunistic access, a 19-day lateral movement phase, targeting of backups, and a delayed payload detonation.
Right, the blueprint is clear.
So if you are operating a business outside a major metropolitan center or running any organization where downtime is catastrophic, how do you actually defend against this decentralized Reyes threat?
You have to engineer your defenses to exploit their specific operational requirements.
Okay, where do we start?
The first countermeasure tackles their initial access vectors. Most of these affiliates purchase compromised session tokens or utilize credential stuffing to breach the perimeter.
So just standard passwords aren't enough.
Not even close. And honestly, standard multi-factor authentication is no longer sufficient either.
Really? Why is that?
Because attackers routinely bypass it using MFA fatigue attacks. That's where they bombard a user with push notification approval requests until the user gets annoyed and accidentally clicks accept. Or they use adversary-in-the-middle phishing proxies to steal the session token after the user authenticates.
Oh, wow. So what's the move then?
The move is toward phishing-resistant MFA, like FIDO2 hardware security keys.
Okay, the physical keys you plug in.
Exactly. With those, the authentication is cryptographically bound to the physical device in the specific login domain. Even if an affiliate buys a stolen password or intercepts a session token, the hardware key requirement stops the initial intrusion cold.
Because they physically don't have the key in their hands in Russia or wherever they are?
Precisely. That secures the perimeter. But, as always in cybersecurity, you must assume breach.
Right. Assume they get it anyway.
Yes. And this is where active threat hunting and network segmentation come into play to disrupt that 19-day dwell time.
Because if an attacker does bypass the perimeter, they rely on a flat network architecture to move laterally, right?
Oh.
Like moving from a compromised receptionist's workstation straight over to a critical financial database.
Exactly. So by segmenting the network, putting strict access controls and firewalls between different departments and server clusters, you force the attacker to make noise.
You put hurdles in their way.
Right. Every time they try to cross a boundary, they generate an anomaly. If you have a system actively monitoring for anomalous lateral movement or unexpected Active Directory queries, you catch them on day 2 of their discovery phase, long before they find the backups.
And speaking of those backups, they must be genuinely immutable, right? We hear immutables thrown around as a buzzword a lot lately.
It is a buzzword, but it's critical.
Let's define what actually saves a business here, because it's not just having a backup on a different server down the hall.
No, definitely not. An immutable backup is written in a write once, read many state.
Okay.
Once the data is committed to that storage, it cannot be altered, encrypted, or deleted by anyone, not even a domain administrator. And it stays that way for a predetermined retention period.
So the ransomware literally can't touch it.
Right. Furthermore, the authentication plane for the backup infrastructure must be completely isolated from your primary Active Directory environment.
Ah, so they can't use the stolen credentials to log into the backup server.
Exactly. If the Qilin affiliate compromises your domain admin credentials, those credentials should be utterly useless for accessing the backup storage.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
If you implement isolated immutable storage, you basically neutralize the entire Qilin business model.
You take away their power.
Yeah. Even if they sit in the network for 19 days, even if they deploy the encryptor flawlessly, you just refuse the negotiation. You wipe the environment and restore operations from those immutable snapshots.
The threat of a 40-gigabyte ransom shifts from a company-ending disaster to just a contained incident response exercise.
You strip away their leverage and, by extension, their psychological terror.
Exactly.
This whole examination of the Qilin attacks really highlights the shifting mechanics of cyber warfare. I mean, we are dealing with an industrialized RIAS ecosystem scaling to hundreds of victims, executing these patient 19-day infiltrations, and aggressively targeting the vital but often underdefended regional supply chains like the Barker Co-operative.
It's a very sophisticated threat landscape.
It is, and yet the operational friction of this gig economy model frequently results in chaotic execution, leaving victims staring at 404 errors while trying to decipher if they've actually lost their data or not.
Yeah. But, before we conclude, there's a natural and frankly disturbing evolution of this missing data tactic that organizations really must prepare for.
Ugh, what's coming next?
Well, we analyzed how a group like Qilin generates panic simply by listing a company's name on a leak site, even without providing the stolen data, right?
Yeah, the bluff.
The next phase is the weaponization of generative AI.
Wait, like synthesizing the proof.
Exactly. In the near future, an attacker won't need to spend 19 days carefully exfiltrating 40 gigabytes of authentic data.
Oh, wow.
They will just breach the perimeter, scrape a few public documents, feed them into a large language model, and instantly generate hundreds of highly convincing, completely fabricated internal records.
Like doctored financial ledgers, falsified board minutes, manufactured HR scandals.
Exactly. They will use this synthetic data to extort companies who were never meaningfully breached in the first place. If a 404 error creates chaos today, imagine a leak site filled with hyper-realistic AI-generated corporate fabrications. It will be devastating.
That is the ultimate evolution of the hostage bluff. They don't just pretend to have the hostage. They use deepfakes to put the hostage on the phone.
Precisely. It's coming.
Man, that is a chilling thought. To ensure your organization is equipped to navigate these complex, evolving threats, whether it's an advanced RAIS affiliate or a synthetic extortion campaign, you need resilient, layered architecture.
You really do.
So visit www.kinsoft.com.au to discuss your security and IT needs. You must engineer your environment so that when the threat actors come testing your perimeter, you are the one holding the leverage. Thank you for joining our discussion today. Stay vigilant, assume breach, and isolate your backups.
Secure your environments, everyone.